Hello, I make it start time. First of all, on behalf of the iMoot team, I'd like to welcome Paul and thank him for his time on presenting on designing a multi-device Moodle course. Over to you, Paul. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Gareth, and it's my pleasure to join everyone today. Hopefully my audio is sounding okay. Can everyone just let me know if the sound's okay so far? Thanks. Great, thank you. Okay, so let's get right into it. Great, thank you. So let's get right into it and start off the session with a question for everyone in attendance. How many mobile devices are you yourselves using daily these days? If you just type in your response in the text, that'd be great. Frank coming in at 4. Wow. Gareth, 2. Richard, 2. Bo, 2. Bass, 2. Shane, 2. Chantel, 3. Okay, so great little poll. Thanks very much. So there is no question that, we live in a multi-device world, and as I want to share with you today, some of the things I've kind of learned along the way of how much that changes not just the appearance of our Moodle sites. That to me is minor now. It more is about how it changes the experience of what we want to do for learning and sharing knowledge with our students and learning from our students. So I think this is a really good question for each of us to ask ourselves every year. It's really easy to start using a tool and then just by default use the tool for everything. But I think we all should kind of stop and think about why are we using a certain tool still the year after year after year. Now I'm actually a pretty new Moodler, I guess if you call it. I've only been using Moodle for about a year and a half. But anyway, when I was thinking of creating a new multi-device course companion for a course this year, I kind of stopped and thought, why do I want to try Moodle out for this purpose? I've used WordPress in the past. You can pillar me now. But I want to kind of give Moodle a shot. So I thought I'd share with you the reasons why I use Moodle, and I'd love for you to just share with me in the text box there other things that come to your mind. And I'd like to kind of divide it into 2 reasons, right? I like to think about why do we want to use it in terms of learning, and then why do we want to use it in terms of interface? So in terms of learning, I think some of the great strengths with Moodle as a multi-device course companion are its discussions supporting forums right in, unlike WordPress. I also think Moodle has great network learning ability with blogs and RSS feeds and Twitter. And again, network learning is a key component when you start thinking about mobile learning and anytime, anywhere learning. Moodle also has a strong collaborative component, for instance, the Glossary, which I'm going to show you how I used as a resource tool. And Moodle, through its very elaborate user permissions, allows us to really make an interesting mixture of public and private content, which really fascinates me. And I'll show you some examples of that in our case study. So if any of you would like, enter in the text box any key strengths that you feel Moodle brings to the table in terms of learning. I'd love to see what your thoughts are on that. If there's anything to add, or if you disagree with anything, let's put that in too. Open ethos, yeah, for sure. Thank you, Richard. Formal learning, yeah, definitely. Can provide a nice structure, guide people through content. Yeah, for sure. Anybody can contribute. A key kind of philosophical factor, isn't it, of Moodle? So these are some things, and thanks for sharing, Frank. Yes, social learning for sure. These are some strengths, I think, for Moodle in terms of learning. And then as a experienced design person, also I'm really keen on the interface that Moodle has. And I think some of its strengths, it allows me to embed third-party objects via HTML, so I can bring in all the best of the internet and the web into a multi-device course companion. There is a little somewhat known, and I know it's shared in some circles more, that you can kind of hide and show topic sections, which allows you to kind of change the way your front page is presented but still have a lot of resources in your site. Language pack customizations. This is awesome, I think, right? And I mean UI terminology changes. That's how I use language pack customizations. So I can kind of tweak how things are presented on very small screens. And again, you can pillar me for using this term hackability, but I have only, basic developer skills, and so being able to go in and kind of tweak PHP and actually change things is a great attraction to me, and I find that's a great strength. Anybody else like to add something? Customizability, for sure. Anybody else want to add any strengths in terms of the interface in their experiences with Moodle? Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. So definitely lots of opportunity for working on things like that. And clean theme, yes, for sure. So actually, this is kind of like a good segue then to kind of look at the next thing, and that is, I know some of you know this answer already, but to me, Moodle 2.5 really changed the world of Moodle in a very significant way. And it was a real milestone release. Anybody want to throw out their thoughts on why 2.5 is such an impressive and important release? What happened in 2.5? I know some of you know. Uh, Indeed, answer above. It was responsive, right? So the Bootstrap theme clean was incorporated into 2.5, and that is really a major milestone, I think, for me personally, and the reason why I use Moodle, and also what we can do with Moodle. So Bootstrap will be talked about in more detail in another session. For instance, Bass, I believe, has a session coming up tomorrow. But very briefly, Bootstrap framework is a collection of code that allows us a lot more easily to present multi-device friendly content. So content that will change depending on the size of the screen or the characteristics of the screen that it's being shown. It provides basically a grid-based layout. It supports responsive design. It even gives us some really nice interface components. Well, I call it for free, but people have to work on integrating it into their themes, but like tabs, and even allows us to use JavaScript snippets like dialog boxes and stuff like that. So, that's actually something that I did not know, because I only kind of came on board with Moodle in like 2.4. So interesting that even in 2.2 there were some responsive elements and themes out there, which is great to hear. So definitely Bootstrap is a really great reason for me why Moodle is so attractive to use for multi-device learning in 2014. So here's a quick little example. This is the Aardvark theme by Sean Dobney, and here it is on a desktop, and of course here it is on a mobile device. So the content is rearranged, shuffled around the screen as appropriate, fonts are scaled, etc., and very accessible for people on mobile devices. I'm sure all of you recognize this, based on Julian Ridden's Elegance theme for the iMoot site, and of course same thing on a mobile device now, presented in a manner that works on that screen size. Okay, so here's a question for you. Who out there is currently supporting multi-device friendly courses? So who out there is actually designing their Moodle sites to be effective on mobile devices? If you'd like to just throw your indication there in the chat, that'd be great. Creating one right now. Excellent to hear. Good timing then. I'd love to also see that later on. Starting, excellent. Bass, yeah, for sure. Few sites in progress. Excellent. Okay. So, definitely in my viewpoint, supporting multi-device, this is great. Supporting multi-device courses, it's no longer actually going to be a question. It's going to be an expectation, and it's going to be the new baseline. It is to me anyway in 2014. It's just to be expected. And so I would say that in the world of Moodle and with all the work being done and the various themes that I see out there, I would kind of say multi-device delivery in itself is now pretty easy. Being able just to choose one of many Bootstrap or non-Bootstrap responsive themes and getting your material to be presented on a different screen sizes, that's pretty easy. But doing it well is not. And what I mean by that is I mean not just looking at, can I put this content on a small screen, but by putting the content on the small screen and allowing our learners to access that content, for instance, at the time of applying their knowledge rather than just kind of sitting at a desktop and trying to get all this knowledge in their head about the course and then applying it later, things really change. You start thinking about performance support. You start thinking about informal learning. You start thinking more about social learning. And so there's a lot of changes that start happening from a learning perspective once your interface is supported on multiple mobile screen devices. So for myself, I kind of have to start at the beginning. And if I'm going to go and deliver a course on like using a responsive theme or multi-device strategy, multi-device platforms, I need to think about a strategy for this. So this is a little cheat list, if you will, that I put together to kind of, before you start on that journey, think about, for instance, why do you even care about putting stuff on multi-devices, right? What kind of problem or opportunity are you going to be able to solve that you can't solve with a fixed theme on the desktop? Who is your audience? What kind of setting is your audience going to be using your Moodle course on, right? It's not going to be at a desk anymore, right? What are the learner goals? What are the organization goals? What's the context of use? What kind of devices are you going to support? What's the intent of your learners? What about offline access? Is it a factor or not? That also might make Moodle less or more attractive, right? And of course, the all-important question of how. How are you going to do this? What kind of organizational support and capabilities do you have, existing or new content? And probably you can look at that list and go, hey, actually, that list would apply to any learning development that I do in Moodle. And fair enough. But I just kind of want to highlight some of those things, especially things like audience and setting, in terms of thinking about multi-device learning strategy as a foundation to kind of start on that journey. Another thing that I think is really helpful to do is to redefine mobile learning. Personally, I see so many descriptions and definitions of mobile learning that the learner's on the go, the learner's on the bus, the learner is doing this. It's all context guessing. I would imagine if I asked you where is the #1 place you use your mobile phone, I bet, why don't you tell me actually, but I bet most of you would actually have it in your home, on the couch, in a chair, maybe at work, and actually using your mobile device in transit, for instance, and truly on the go is only a smaller part of that usage. So I think we need to redefine mobile learning in a multi-device world. And this is my attempt to do that. Fair enough. It's ubiquitous. In other words, anytime, anywhere you want to learn something, that's where you're going to be able to access stuff or want to access stuff, right? It's situational. It's when you are in the situation that you need help with or you want to learn more about. That is when you're going to access this material. It's connected. Our mobile devices are connected. They're not isolated like desktop computers were more traditionally done, right? So social learning, network learning is more critical. And lastly, it's more personal. Our devices are more of a personal kind of nature, relationship to us, and we want learning to be personalized and not just the same for everybody else. So that's how I like to redefine mobile learning in a multi-device world. And there's a comment here, optimistic as well. And for sure, you're right. Having the mobile device with you, and then you're wondering how to do something better, or maybe you're wondering how to do something that's new, being able to get that information at the time that you need it and that opportunity, that's an amazing change compared to traditional desktop-based course material, if you know what I mean. The last thing I want to touch upon here before we get into the case study is some multi-device experience goals. Because multi-device not only means the user may have a mobile device. Multi-device to me means the user may actually go through many devices to accomplish one task or goal. So they might start a task on their mobile phone, they might continue that task on their desktop, and wrap up that task on their tablet. Okay? So when you have that, you need to start thinking about consistency, both conceptual and visual, across different platforms that may access your Moodle course site. You want to make sure that all the content and functionality available to you is available on any device. This whole idea of mobile should be stripped down and mobile should give you only the essentials, I don't agree with that. Mobile should give you everything the user needs, and it should be equivalent to what's on the desktop. We should ban the link full site, okay? So at the bottom of the screen, when you see a website with a link called full site, when you're looking on from a mobile device, that's just not helpful, okay? We need content parity, and I've heard that from my students. They really appreciate the fact that they could access their content on any device. It's very important. You want to be able to easily move tasks and shift between tasks as you do things. And you want to think about the entire ecosystem, not isolated devices. So how even, using the like accessing the course site on a mobile device and on a desktop even at the same time, or how does working on one device affect going to another device? And whenever possible, trying to optimize physical interactions on every device as well. So there's a book actually, and I'm sorry that the author's name escapes me, but she wrote an entire book on designing multi-device experiences. If anybody recognizes this book title, feel free to text it in the message box. But I'm pretty confident if you just Google multi-device experience design or something like that, you'd find the book. It goes in much more in depth than this little list here, but at least this list will start kind of getting you to think about things a little bit more when it comes to designing experiences across devices. And an important thing as well is that when we're designing these multi-device experiences, what are our goals for our learners, all right? And working with my students in various classes and getting feedback on these multi-device course companions, what I've gotten back from my own students, oh, thank you very much for sharing the title of the book in the text window. What I've gotten back is my students want their course companions engaging, organized, relevant, and appealing. And I know everyone in this talk is looking at that list and going, yes, of course, what else? But unfortunately, sometimes Moodle course sites are not those things. And so we all need to work as hard as we can to make sure that these learner experience goals are met with our multi-device course sites. Okay, so let's take a bit of a break. What we've covered so far, I've kind of shared some of the core reasons why I'm using Moodle in 2014 for multi-device course companions, talking about the fact that now with so many great responsive themes out there, it's pretty easy to have content adapted to the screen, but what about learning approaches and what kind of interactions do we want our learners to be doing now that we have different contexts, right? Share with you a kind of a quick list of ideas of developing a foundation for device learning strategy, talking about mobile learning in a multi-device world, talking about being situational and ubiquitous, right? Share with you some multi-device experience goals, trying to be consistent conceptually and visually across devices, making sure content and functionality is the same on all devices and platforms, and briefly touching about some multi-device learner experience goals, where from my students I've heard that they want stuff engaging and organized and relevant and appealing. So why don't I just break for a minute here and get a chance to kind of read some of the stuff that's going on in the chat window. And if you have any questions or comments, I'll give you a minute to think about that, and feel free to text it in the message box, and I'll see if I can answer your question before we start our guided tour case study. Thank you. Oh, and thank you, Richard, for putting that link into the book. See a good comment from Gary about, so it's the desktop content that needs to be stripped to save the mobile space. And here's the way that I look at it. It's because the monitors are so huge on the desktop, a lot of people are lazy and put unneeded content. And I also saw an earlier comment about mobile first. And it's not so much it's mobile first, it's experience first. It's what content is really important for your users and their situations, and going at it from that angle. While in the past, being on the large desktop screens, we could just plow and shovel all kinds of content and stuff on the screens and not pay a great price, but now we have to be a lot more careful about it. So good comment so far. Any other questions or comments before we start doing a little guided tour of this Moodle site I've got here? Richard, that's a great comment, and it does actually. What I find is as soon as your content is on mobile, not only do you have to compete with other distractions, it's more likely that tasks will be interrupted. It's more likely that during access to a Moodle course site that they're going to have to do something else and then come back to it. So it's distractions, but it's also a lot more tasks being broken up into kind of different steps rather than just sitting down on your desktop computer and going through something from start to finish. So good comment there. Okay, let's continue then. Oh, okay, got a few more good questions here. Are there things that you should not do on mobile? Well, here's the question. That's a really good question. It's is there anything that you're doing that would not be valuable to your users or your learners? That's the way that I look at it. Again, it's not so much being on mobile. It's just really thinking about what's important to our learners. What is the content, interactions, functionality that is really the valuable stuff, and maybe trimming some of the less valuable stuff away. So it does help you with focus that way. Bite-sized learning, I like that phrase. I think that, and also if you want to start Googling a term called micro-learning, is very appropriate, where you have shorter pieces of learning rather than long chunks of it. But just to have the counter example of that, I know from my own students that sometimes, you know what, they really just want to watch that 20-minute YouTube video on a topic that I recommended in the class on their mobile phone. So we do want to provide more bite-sized stuff, but not at the cost of thinking that that's only what our learners want. I think that is a mistake. I think we want to deliver both bite-sized learning and also more lengthy material pieces that could be appropriate at times if learners want to do it. Okay, and I'm just looking at Richard's comment here. Yeah, and there are some averages for usage. I have seen that stuff too, but all I'm saying is that we shouldn't make that decision for our learners. They should make that decision. So we could offer a variety of content, different types of content, different lengths of content on all devices, and then allow our learners to choose which device and which piece of content that suits them. Okay, so let's take a look at this case study. So this is an actual course site I created for a 3-week-long course on multi-device learning experiences, ironically enough. And this is a public site, so feel free to take a look at it. I think I even have the URL here for you. So if you've got a mobile device right now in your pocket or on your desktop or wherever it might be, feel free to take a peek at that on your mobile device as we go through. I'm just going to focus on showing the desktop version of the site as I go through instead of just going back and forth all these screens from desktop mobile. I mean, you'll see clearly that, yes, it does work on your mobile device. So I'll go through it just on the desktop. So I've got various things to say here. Why don't we start with the front page? And I guess one thing that I kind of humorously have heard from people is that often Moodle works best sometimes when you can kind of, and I don't mean this in any bad way, unMoodle Moodle. In other words, when you can make a site look so it's not as easy to identify as a Moodle site, interesting enough, that's where sometimes people kind of go, oh, it's just not more of the same, and they kind of, are a little bit more receptive, let's just say that. So this is a modified version of the Aardvark theme that I mentioned earlier with some very basic CSS modifications. And basically you see here there are some main topics, fundamentals, assess. We've got a sidebar here, nothing too special there. I'll just keep going down the screen. Design and build. So the main topics are on the screen, and in fact each one is a discussion forum that you can talk about. And when viewed on a mobile device, of course, it will reorganize things and fit things appropriate. The thing I'd like to highlight for you here is that this actually is using the social format. So this is the social format built into Moodle, but I kind of broke some rules, I guess you'd say in a way, where I removed the ability for viewers of this page to add new form topics. I'm simply kind of using the social format as a way to present key modules up front in a more inviting manner. Because as you notice, each module then has a discuss this topic, a number of replies. So right away I'm trying to kind of get my audience involved in the topics. So it's just kind of a slightly revised version of the social format. And also along the top, you'll see these are the main areas that you can explore on the site. And there's no big front index. There's no big 45, 50 links up front. I think it's important to kind of really streamline our presentation and kind of support navigation another way. So looking at our core settings here, for instance, you'll see, if I scroll down, that I'm using that social format. So that's something I encourage you to kind of explore, is that social format can be kind of massaged into a few different results, which is quite interesting to do. And if you don't want to use the social format, you can actually use the same technique if you choose topics and then you hide various sections. So here you can actually see what I've done is that I've actually have a section, a topic called pages, and that's where I have all these pages that are up here. But because they're hidden, they don't overrun my front page. I can choose with either HTML blocks or in this case the social format what's on that front page. And so either using the social format or topic format with hidden pages and sections, it will just give you a more inviting and flexible kind of way to kind of have your learners come into that front area of your course. So that's something that I found really powerful, by the way, especially when you're looking at multi-device stuff, because you don't want that front page to be this huge long list of multiple links. I don't think. I think you kind of want to customize it some more for that. I see some questions, and definitely let me just take a moment here, take a look at that. Footer links customizable in the GUI. Yes, I was able to customize some of those links in the footer area, if I remember, through the Aardvark theme. And then Maureen asked, are the footer header links available in 2.5? This site is running 2.6. You have to check. I think Sean released a version of Aardvark for both 2.5, 2.6, and if that was the case, you could do it with 2.5, but you'd have to check that. Maureen, I'm not sure, to tell you the truth. Well, thank you very much. Someone's taking a look on the mobile device. That's nice to hear. Thanks. So let's continue then on this little tour. And this is a very important thing I'd like to highlight, is bringing content to your users. Unfortunately, the default situation with Moodle is you get all these text links of all these resources. I want the user to not have to tap in order to get to content. I want content to get to them. And if you notice, here they've got actually a live preview, and in fact it's the whole content of the slides. There's a great HTML5 slides app called slides.com. And this is an embedded HTML5 slideshow, which means, guess what? No Flash, no Adobe Acrobat, multi-device compatible, scaling on all the devices you want to look at it, including iPhone, Android, Windows Phone, whatever you want to do. This is important because this allows you in a multi-device context to bring all this content. Remember I talked about content parity? This is an example of content parity. Also, it's an example of bringing the content right up front, so the user can actually click on these items and preview the slides even before they go to the full slideshow if they want to, using a link. Or they could just actually tap full screen and view these slides, not going anywhere from the front page. So that's what you want to do. I think we want to bring content as much as possible to our users, not the other way. How do you do this? Well, this is where Bootstrap starts to be our friend, right? Because even doing something as simple as embedding an HTML5 object in a multi-column format could be a little bit daunting for those of us who aren't heavy CSS and HTML people. But with Bootstrap, it becomes quite easy. So this is the editor for, remember I told you I was using the social format? This is a forum post, by the way. So start thinking about what you can do with forum posts with Bootstrap as well. So this is a forum post using Bootstrap for a multi-column kind of format in terms of a media preview, actually, I believe. So if we go here and tap on the HTML display button, we see this, which I know is not too lovely, so I have another slide just in a moment to show you. But if you just take a minute to look at this a little bit, you'll see that, oh, okay, so there's a div class called media, and then there's some content there. And that allows us to preview our HTML5 slide object along with some text. Let me show you a better formatted version of this in Bootstrap 2.x. And by the way, Aardvark is a Bootstrap 2.x based theme. I'd love to try Bootstrap 3, but at this point I couldn't quite make that change, so I'm using Bootstrap 2 still. But this is a little snippet of the code that you need, and basically this code allows you to include a HTML object and then some descriptive text and have it automatically scaled on multiple device sizes and have that two-column format. So this is amazing stuff that you can do using social format, forum posts, adding a bit of Bootstrap. You can start to really bring content up front for your learners. Here's another example of Bootstrap at work. We've got our fundamentals resource page. We've got various topics, and we've got a two-column layout that when you collapse it will stack the videos on top of each other automatically. And again, thank you, Bootstrap, for doing that, because I could not do that just by CSS and HTML myself, because I don't have that kind of ability. But again, sneaking a peek at behind the page, look at all the CSS you need to do a two-column fluid layout. Almost none, right? So just by learning a little bit of Bootstrap lingo, you can start using some of these things like a media preview, like a two-columns fluid layout. It's really quite manageable and approachable, I think, for those of us who have some HTML, a bit of basic CSS. You can really start to leverage Bootstrap much more than just by using a theme. Using a theme is the first step, but when you can actually add a little bit of HTML to help Bootstrap formatting in your own content, then you start really making your stuff more multi-device friendly. So that's a little sneak peek at what's going on behind the scenes there. Another thing that I mentioned is the idea of blending public and private interaction. So what do I mean by that? I mean that first of all, if you notice, this entire course is public. I believe in not only making my courses public, even if they're for paid students only, I can at least make the content public, but even the creation of a course, which is another session I'm doing, I think, later today, I'm going to be talking about developing a course in public. But regardless, what I want to do and what Moodle allowed me to do with these multiple user permissions is kind of blend public and private. So the course is public, and as you see, it looks like you could even discuss a topic without even signing in, which was a little bit of mucking about user permissions. And then if you go into this, you'll see that in public, student comments are visible. And I believe this is an important part for students to be able to be comfortable with sharing their thoughts online in a public forum like this. However, only participants can actually participate in this particular discussion. That's a choice that I made. So if you click on the reply button, that's when Moodle finally asks you to log in. So usually with Moodle, it's either the course is only accessible by clicking on a login link, and usually it's kind of like you don't have that kind of mixture of being able to even see the discussions, but when you actually have to respond to one, then you do have to log in. So I tried to kind of push and tweak the user permissions a bit in order to support that. So that was an important thing. And again, think about it, right? Because when you're on a mobile device, you don't want to log in if you don't have to. This is one of the reasons why I like making it open and public. So then at least one less login for my students. If they're only there to gain some information rather than actually input some stuff, right? Okay, so let's see what else we got here for you. Oh yes, okay, the glossary. So again, I'm a fairly new person to Moodle, so when I discovered the glossary, I was really blown away by all the things you could do with it, right? You can, sort things by alphabet, browse by topic, and I wanted to take it one step further. Remember I talked about performance support? And I talked about informal learning. And to me, the glossary was this great way to provide a resource glossary. So not just definitions, but I mean total articles, YouTube videos, illustrations, various things about topics. So you can use it as a resource. I'll just scroll down here showing you, you can embed, and this was responsive, by the way, embed YouTube videos, embed images in your glossary. And the really nice thing is that while all these articles and images are external, the glossary is local. So they could do a search by a topic like Agile, and they could get a resulting list of all the resources that were available for that topic. So it kind of like combined this local idea with some text preview of content on the external websites and their titles, allowing users to search for things in a more performance support, kind of informal learning kind of style. And so here they search for Agile, and now they just see all the content related to Agile, and then they can jump off and view a full article. They can jump here and view a YouTube. So to me, the glossary capability is really, really quite something. And it even goes further because in Moodle, you can even have it so students can comment on glossary entries and contribute to glossaries and submit new items for glossaries. And so it really becomes a collaborative learning vehicle. And again, I know for many of you, you know all about glossaries, but for me, I can't hide my enthusiasm that it wasn't just definitions. I saw this great ability of putting resource collections based on glossaries. Which was something that I wanted to explore. And so that takes a look at glossaries. And since then, I've learned about databases, and I've learned that I could actually use a database to maybe even do some more interesting things. But that's because I'm still learning as I go along. Okay. Here is, by the way, what I was talking about. Once a user is logged in, they can then actually make comments on a glossary item, which again is a great way to encourage learner involvement and constructing and sharing their own understanding and knowledge of things as they go through. So glossary is a really powerful tool for that. All right, next up, what do we have for you here? Oh yes. So remember I mentioned language pack customization? So if the student wants to add a new entry to glossaries, here you can see that using language pack customizations, I kind of changed the titles that are usually generated. So I have a title of the resource, content, or preview. So in the UI, I was able to kind of change the way the glossary was presented to the student to make it support the idea that they're adding resources to it, not just definitions of words as it is by default. But again, it's amazing that you can customize Moodle in this manner to myself. Okay. Next up, we have better one-on-one student chat. So maybe some of you have noticed this little guy down here, this little widget, right? Now, Moodle has chat, and I understand that. But what I wanted to do is I wanted the students to be able to go on any platform to be looking at this content in their multi-device course companion, and at any page, at any time, start a conversation with me if they had a question or a comment about what they were looking at on the site itself. And in order to facilitate that, I used a little tool from a company called Olark. And Olark creates what I would call commercial grade chat product. In other words, if you're running a business or you're running a product company or a service company, you could use an Olark installation and provide one-on-one customer support, provide one-on-one sales assistance, whatever it is. But to me, in an educational context, Olark gives me the ability to provide one-on-one chats with my students at any time that they're interacting with this site. And this was recognized and told, my students gave me the feedback that they love this idea. They love the idea that they can have this private, one-on-one, real-time discussion with me, if I'm online, mind you, as they are going through the site, have questions about an assignment, have questions about content, whatever the case might be. So the students would simply click on the widget in the lower right-hand corner. This comes up, and if I'm online, they can text me right away, and we can have a discussion right here. They can even continue to look at the content they have a question about. They can even go to different pages of the content. I can even suggest URLs down here that they navigate to, etc. So really powerful. Moodle chat is fine, but it doesn't give me the kind of ubiquity that I'm looking for. So I use this tool by Olark, and I found it really helpful. And so that's something that also works on multi-device. They've done some work on Olark, so it works even like on an iPhone, an Android phone. That kind of chat interface will work out. So that was pretty good. And the last thing I want to show you here is, this is a great question. Do you have to be signed into chat? No. That's one of the awesome things about it, is that the student, again, it does not have to log in. Whenever you can avoid a student having to log in, you are helping the student increase the chance that they're going to actually interact with you. So that's what you want to do. So great comment and question. Thank you. Another thing that you might want to think about if you're doing this, if you're putting together this big multi-device course companion idea, is you need feedback, and you need critical feedback. You need a way for your students to safely tell you, hey, something is not up to snuff on this site. You need to do something better. And in the relationship of instructor-student, sometimes students aren't comfortable with that. So I included an anonymous course feedback form. So by clicking on this link, the student would go to a Google form where they could include their commentary and give me feedback and optionally include their name, but they didn't have to. And so the question, by the way, is did I get non-student trolls? You know what? It's amazing I did not. It's amazing. And maybe because no one found me. But anyway, but this I had really good feedback from, and I'll be honest with you, I got some really critical feedback on this forum about some class sessions and other things, but I also got some really positive feedback, and I learned from this. And so, I don't know if I'm brave or stupid, but I think it's really important to give our students this channel of anonymous feedback so they feel secure about giving us their feedback without feeling, oh no, they're not going to look at me very well if I tell my instructor this or that kind of thing. So that's something to mention. So to wrap up, when you build a multi-device course companion, it's really important that you kind of stop and you kind of look at all the pages and content that you've designed in their totality, right? So here I just kind of put together on one screen for you 4 different pages that we've been talking about and visiting and thinking about, am I making this multi-device course site engaging? Is this multi-device course site organized? Is this multi-device course site relevant for my students? And is this multi-device course site appealing for my students? And you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to be critical, and I can clearly share with you that this is only a first step for me. I clearly see some weaknesses in the site design. I clearly see that there is lots of room for improvement. However, that being said, I do honestly feel that I'm in the right direction of making it engaging, organized, relevant, and appealing, and I know that hearing back from my students, I'm on the right track. But it's very important, and you do the same thing. When you do a multi-device course companion, have your phone, have your tablet, and your laptop or desktop all together. And as you create each and every page, look at them on every device, try them out on every device. You can't just build on one device and then hope for magic on all the other devices, even if you are using a responsive theme. You simply must be multi-device in your development process. It's a whole other topic. Maybe it's another session sometime, but that's a key element. Okay, so some suggested next steps for you, and then I'm really looking forward to some questions and discussion here in just a few minutes. First of all, of course, if you, hopefully you can install 2.7 and get that going, because it has another Bootstrap theme called More, I believe, that has some more options for you to configure. But at least with Moodle 2.5 and above, check out the Bootstrap theme Clean. That's a great starter theme for you to kind of see what responsive design can do for you. Bass Brands has a collection of Bootstrap themes that he's working on, particularly Bootstrap 3, which you might want to check out. There's other Bootstrap themes out there, but I'm more familiar with Bass's stuff. Learn more about the Bootstrap framework itself. Right now there's two main versions, 2.x and 3.x. Those are some links for that. And then Luke Wroblewski is a well-known mobile first, he actually literally wrote the book on mobile first, designer, and there's a link for a presentation that might be helpful for you to learn about multi-device design. And also on treehouse.com, there's a great beginner's guide to responsive design. So and by the way, all these links are also on the course site for this talk on the iMoot site. So I want to get some questions and discussion going. I'm really looking forward to that. I want to catch up on the text box because I know that people have made some comments. I want to first thank you so far for attending today. I want you to hang around, though. I want to hear your questions and have a bit of discussion about this topic in just a few minutes. As you know, I also have the course companion available publicly for you to hammer at. And please send me your critical feedback on that as you explore that on the device of your choice. And just the last thing I want to add is Google Chrome web apps. So, Google Chrome is the #1, I believe now, web browser out there. And if you're not familiar with it, in Google Chrome, you can actually install a little desktop application that allows you to, with one tap or click, access your Google Chrome apps in a much more fast, clean manner. And I just want to mention this to you because you can make your Moodle site a Google Chrome app, which is just awesome. Okay, so what you do basically is you have to do a bit of research here. You'll have to Google this yourselves and find out the content. You just basically make a very simple, I think it's a JSON file, with your URL for your Moodle site and a few other details. And then you can actually, here's a snapshot of my course companion on the Google App Store for free, of course. And the nice thing is for students is that this is possible. On their desktop, they have the Google Apps Chrome Launcher. You can have your own desktop icon. Google is going to be moving this kind of support onto mobile in the future. It just means that your students have such quick access to your course material that it's a great way to enhance that idea of performance support, anytime, anywhere learning. The easier you make it for students to access your multi-device course companion, the more likely it is that they're going to benefit from it, right? So I just wanted to kind of mention that and highlight what you can do with Google Chrome apps and Moodle. Okay, so let's take some questions and discussion. And also happy to share the mic as well at this point. I'm just trying to catch up a little bit on the discussion. Who would like to start? First of all, I'll just try to catch up here. Does anybody have any questions or comments they'd like to have? You can either text them in the text box, or Gareth or Shane, perhaps if you can start polling people to see if they want the mic. If you can help them with that too, you let me know what the best way to handle things. Thank you.
Yeah, hi all. Firstly, can I thank you very much, Paul, for an absolutely really informative and engaging presentation. That was absolutely brilliant and very elegant in your slides. Everybody, yeah, please, if you want to grab the mic, just unmute yourself and ask the question, and we'll manage it from there, or type in the chat. Thank you.
Thanks, Gareth. Thank you. If you had previously entered a question or comment, maybe re-enter it for me. That would help me kind of find it and then help to respond. Oh, great. Okay, so Bass, so what student feedback did you learn from? Okay, so this is what I did, is that I had in a previous multi-device course companion, I was for 13 weeks. So the nice thing is week 3, and by the way, I do blended learning, so I have face-to-face students and they also have the mobile course companion. I actually had like an in-class survey. So I gauge students on, the strongest point of the site, the weakest point of the site. They also gave me ongoing feedback. The multi-device Moodle site that you just saw for my 3-week course, unfortunately, I did not get enrollment in that high enough to do the course. So I've only been able to get feedback from colleagues like yourselves on the course site. I actually haven't got student feedback on that particular design. But the process of getting feedback from students is critical, and those 4 learner experience goals that I shared with you earlier, they were based on my 13-week SFU course students. Hope that answered your question. Thanks, Frank, for joining us today. Thanks. Now, I really enjoyed the session myself. I'll be here for a while longer. Did you do testing too? Yeah. Because I made the sites public, they were constantly tested. I would share updates on my Twitter feed. I would have colleagues check them out. I didn't have formal usability testing per se, but I did have a very tight loop of any feedback I received. I would usually make changes quite quickly. And of course, when you're looking at a 13-week course, I had literally 13 weeks of usability testing, if you know what I mean, because every week my students were on that site. I had 80 students, by the way, in that course. Every week I got feedback. That OLARC chat widget was an awesome tool to get really rapid feedback from students actually on the site. When they found something less than ideal, they would often let me know and comment on that issue. So that was really helpful and informative. If anybody has any questions or comments about anything that they've seen as well on that site, I'm happy to share everything that I learned through that process, getting that multi-device course site going. I'd also love to know of any other course sites out there that are multi-device friendly from the get-go, like designed with that purpose in mind, designed more for performance support, informal learning, stuff like that. Gareth, so is the code available? So what exactly do you mean by that question, though?
So yeah, for the theme code.
Oh, sorry, the which one?
The theme code.
Oh, the theme
For the
code.
theme.
Okay. So I'm happy to share anything that you'd like. So for instance, I did not create a child theme because that's above my technical know-how. What I did with the theme that you've seen on that site is that I had Sean's Aardvark theme, and then Sean provides a CSS customization box, and it is in that box that I did all the things I needed to do. And once in a while I had to do a little bit of a PHP or an HTML hack, but 95% of it is through CSS, and I am happy to share that. You just let me know, Gareth, how or where I could put that. Maybe I could put it on my course page on the iMoot site. I could do that, or anything that you'd like.
Well, of course, page on iMoot site or even the themes forum, perhaps. I mean, I think it's such another excellent topic. I'm sure Richard Orman would agree with me. It's something to show off on the themes forum, perhaps, to really spark ideas.
Okay, sure. What I'll do, Gareth, at least to start with, is I'll add as a resource on my course page on the iMoot site the CSS that I used. And so hopefully if that can be of help to people, of course, I'm glad to do that. So I'll work on that, and I'll hopefully get that up in the next hour or so. Meredith, this is a great question. How would you go about training faculty to create multi-device courses? Where to start? I would say you kind of have to do a session kind of like this one. Like, in other words, don't start with responsive design. I wouldn't. I'd start with how does anytime, anywhere access to our courses change how we relate to our learners, how our learners want to use our sites. So I would talk about multi-device learning. I would talk about performance support. I would talk about informal learning. I would talk about those things, and then that would, I think, nicely lead into then, well, here's how to do it. You can use responsive themes. Here's some ideas of or examples of responsive themes. Because I think as educators, if you start looking at how you could change the screen to present it on a small device, well, yeah, people will see that, but it won't get them thinking, I think, the way you need to get them thinking. And in my discovery path, it was all about, like I said so many times, informal learning, performance support. How can I engage my students more with these, with access on their devices, that type of thing. So I hope, Meredith, that gives you some ideas of how to start with things. Thanks for your question. Yes, and speed and performance is definitely a factor, and I think I know that that's an area that I need to improve on that site. Sometimes on that site, I'm downloading and previewing 6 or 8 YouTube videos at a time, but it doesn't lock the learner out. It does take a little while for everything to display, but the learner can click on any link at any time and continue. But performance is definitely a user experience element that I need to improve as well. And also, they just released a spec on responsive images, which I have not had a chance to really digest, but that could be quite promising. Yes, Richard, the theme was aardvark with some CSS, and I intend to share that publicly, my CSS customizations, on my course page on the iMoot site in the next hour or so. Yeah, Tim, this is great. It's not about designing the Moodle course, it's about the learning experience and how the website supports it. Very well put, and all I'd maybe tweak is saying, and how multi-device access further enhances it. That's the kind of spin that I like to take. For sure, design and learning experiences, they are linked together. In fact, more recently, I'm actually just using the term learner experience to kind of bring together the fields of user experience and learning design. Any other questions or comments? I'm here for the next little while. And like I say, I'll post my CSS customizations as crude as they may be, and I'll probably be pillared for some of the things that I've done, but I'm happy to share with you all what I have there. Thanks, Richard. It's been a pleasure. Okay, well, I guess that probably wraps it up. I really appreciate everyone who joined us today. Thank you so much for the questions and comments and discussion. That's one of the things I love about the iMoot. It's a great opportunity to harness the brain power that's in the room, if you know what I mean. And I've really learned a few things myself along the way today. And like I say, I'll share my CSS in the next little while on my course page site. Okay, I guess we'll wrap things up. Gareth, is there anything else you want to touch upon, or is that about it? All right, okay, well, we'll wrap it up. Thanks again, everybody. I really appreciate you joining us today, and I'll hope to see you around the iMoot. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yep. Thank you, Paul.